Genesis 18, verses 1 through 14. Later, the Lord again appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre. Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When Abraham saw them, he ran from his tent to meet them. He bowed face down on the ground before them and said, "Sir, if you think well of me, please stay a while with me, your servant. I will bring some water so all of you can wash your feet. You may rest under the tree, and I will get some bread for you so you can regain your strength. Then you may continue your journey." The 3 men said, "That is fine. Do as you said." Abraham hurried to the tent where Sarah was and said to her, "Hurry, prepare 20 quarts of fine flour and make it into loaves of bread." Then Abraham ran to his herd and took one of his best calves. He gave it to a servant who hurried to kill it and to prepare it for food. Abraham gave the 3 men the calf that had been cooked, and milk curds and milk. While they ate, he stood under the tree near them. The men asked Abraham, "Where is your wife, Sarah?" "There, in the tent," said Abraham. Then the Lord said, "I will certainly return to you about this time a year from now. At that time, your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were very old. Since Sarah was past the age when women normally have children, she laughed to herself, "My husband and I are too old to have a baby." Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, 'I am too old to have a baby'? Is anything too hard for the Lord? No, I will return to you at the right time a year from now, and Sarah will have a son." Genesis 21, verses 1 through 7. The Lord cared for Sarah as he had said, and did for her what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and gave birth to a son for Abraham in his old age. Everything happened at the time God had said it would. Abraham named his son Isaac, the son Sarah gave birth to. He circumcised Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born, and Sarah said, "God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." No one thought that I would be able to have Abraham's child, but even though Abraham is old, I have given him a son. Come surely, Lord Jesus, as dawn follows night. Our hearts long to greet you as roses the light. Salvation draw near us, our vision engage. One candle is lit for the hope of the age.
This story in Genesis is long and messy. 7 chapters and at least 14 years of living. Genesis 15, Abram is promised a birth child by the Lord. Genesis 16, Hagar, Sarai's slave, is raped and Ishmael is born when Abram is 86. Genesis 17, 13 years later, names are changed to Abraham and Sarah. We hear an alternate version of the covenant from chapter 15. A child is explicitly promised to Sarah by the Lord, and Abraham laughs, and Abraham is 99. Yet another version of the promise and annunciation of Isaac is recorded by 3 men personifying the Lord, and Sarah laughs. Sarah is 89. Genesis 19, Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed by the same 3 men who represent the Lord. Genesis 20, this couple moves from the plain of Sodom to Gerar. Fear of the king causes Abraham to claim that Sarah is his sister. The king claims her as his own, but is warned by God not to sleep with her because she is married. When cleaning up the mess, Sarah is revealed to be Abraham's wife and also his half-sister by their father. In Genesis 21, Isaac is conceived and born. Abraham is 100 and Sarah is 90. This is a long and messy story. A lot of shenanigans go on. Promises are misunderstood. Rape and lies and destruction nearly derail the outcome. But the humanly longed for and divinely promised child is finally born, and the story goes on from there. If we are to look at this story as a standard of hope, then we have to step back and keep the long view. These larger-than-life characters, chosen father and mother of a great nation, ancestors in faith, these people are as flawed as they come. They have trouble believing the outrageous promises of their Creator, and both laugh out loud. They second-guess what is supposed to happen, raping, lying, treating others abominably. But in the end, they and God fulfill the expectations of the covenant and get where they want to be. And they get there in their old age. Maintaining hope for an entire lifetime is one heck of a job. Keeping the long view is nearly impossible while dealing with the details of daily life. Of course they had some trouble along the way. I was one of those people who wanted children my entire life. I thought it would just happen in the course of things. It didn't, and I had some choice words with God along the way. A number of years before I met John, I had a very intense dream. In the dream, I gave birth to a boy child who was already about 2 years old, already talking and walking. The dream child was understood to be indigenous, filled with color and stories and life energy. He was the epitome of what I hoped for. Over the years, I went through 10 fertility experiments, which is what they were in my day, spending all of my savings, 2 inheritances, and 3 tax refunds on medical intervention. My marriage back then, already questionable, ended, and my inherited anxiety disorder went through the roof, leading me to self-intervention and life-saving medication. I gave up on men and then met John. I gave up on marriage and then married John. We explored adoption for 3.5 years. I gave up on adoption and turned our nursery back into a guest room. And a week later, we got a call from our social worker offering us an infant, a mixed-race child that no one else on her list was interested in because they wanted a baby that looked like them. I was 51. John was 46. Peter was 2 weeks old when we became a family. Was the dream I had years earlier a promise from God? Perhaps. But I was childless for 51 years and understand completely that the prayers of women longing for children are not necessarily answered in the affirmative. Looking back, I could say that God was preparing me, readying us, making us wait for the birth of the child that was intended for us. But if Peter had never arrived, I could also say that I was given a chance to pastor and parent numerous kids at camp, as a youth minister, as an aunt and cousin and friend. Did I lose hope like Sarah? Did I try to play God and make an end run around the divine plan? You bet I did. But if I take the long view, if I let go of what I thought was supposed to happen and see what actually did happen, I can perceive in my long and messy story a thread of hope woven throughout. I gave up repeatedly and then tried again repeatedly. Perhaps that is how hope works. It's not something that can be sustained in every moment. It is something that flares up, dies down, and has to be stoked and fed to gain strength again. And this is a good reason for us to meet together here, however often we can make it. This is a place where, and a gathering of people with whom hope can be stoked and rekindled and fed to a blazing bonfire. This first day of Advent, the first day of our new church year, we begin that stoking with Advent candles. We watch the light grow each week until in the deep darkness of Christmas Eve, a child is born. The Christ candle is ablaze, and we carry that light out into the world. If we take the long view, this is the time in which we renew our covenant with our Maker, and the future is conceived and born. This is the moment in which we see in one another allies and compatriots, our collaborators in the process of resisting the creeping darkness which is snuffing out the light of hope in so many lives. This year, this decade, this time in history may seem dark and filled with mean-spiritedness and evil glee. We may be tempted by our own weariness, feelings of despair and resignation, to abandon hope, to succumb to numbness and lose ourselves in alternate realities. But there is a light here and in our souls. In the eyes and hearts and hands of the people in this room, hope can be rekindled. Keep the long view and trust that God's vision, God's promises, will be fulfilled.
Hope is a star that shines in the night, leading us on till the morning is bright. When God is our child, there's joy in our song. The last shall be first, and the weak shall be strong, and none shall be afraid.
Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. Let us go remembering to praise, to live in the moment, to love mightily, to bow to the mystery. Amen.